Hi, so today we will be learning how to crochet those 4 types of granny square plus a basic granny square. First, we are going to learn how to do a granny square. This is the most basic square you can do. It's the classic one where there's no particular pattern and you will see it's really repetitive. So to do a granny square, you need to know 2 things: how to do a magic ring and a double crochet. You are going to start with a magic ring. I already have a tutorial on my page if you don't know. Once you have your magic ring, you are going to start your first row by chaining 2. This will count as our first double crochet. Then you are going to do 2 more double crochets to create a cluster of 3 double crochet. Each cluster will be separated by a chain 2. This means that our next step is chaining 2 and creating another cluster of 3 double crochet. This whole row is made up of 4 clusters of double crochet, each separated by a chain 2. This whole row will be made up of 4 clusters of 3 double crochet, separated by chains 2. Once you finish your row, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters separated each by chain 2. To finish our row, we will pull on the little tail to close the circle as tight as we can. Then we are going to half double crochet into the chain 2 we did in the beginning. Just a little reminder, a half double crochet is like a double crochet, but instead of pulling through 2 loops and then through the other 2 loops, you pull through all 3 loops at the same time. Then we can start our next row. For our next row, you are going again to chain 2, which will count as your first double crochet, and create a cluster of 3 in the hole we created by doing a half double crochet. So as you see, I did my 2 double crochet in the same hole. So next we are going to pass in the next hole where we did our chain 2, and we are going to create another cluster of 3 double crochet, all in the same hole. This will become our corner, so we are going to chain 2 again and do another cluster of 3. So as we go further in our project, you will see that the spot where we will be doing chains of 2 will correspond to our corners. So for example, here I'm going to another corner, so where I did my chain 2, and I'm gonna do again the same thing. So a cluster of 3, chain 2, another cluster of 3. So we are back where we started, and I did my last cluster of 3 in the same hole we started our first cluster of 3, and like you see, in each hole I did a cluster of 3, chain 2. To finish this row, we are gonna again do a half double crochet into the chain 2 we started the row with. For our third row, we are going to start by chaining 2 as we did for the row 1 and 2. We start in our corner and we do a cluster of 3. We are then gonna pass to the next hole. This is not a chain 2, so we are not going to do a corner. We are simply going to do a cluster of 3 in there. The next hole is a corner because we have a chain 2. So for the corners, you will always do the same thing. So a cluster of 3 separated by a chain 2 and then another cluster of 3. The next hole is again not a chain 2, so we are just gonna do a cluster of 3. Once you finish your third row, you are going again to half double crochet into the chain 2 we did at the beginning. For the fourth row and the next one, they are pretty similar. So you are always going to start in the corner by chaining 2 and doing a cluster of 3 double crochet. Then you are going to ask yourself a question. Is the next hole created by a chain 2? If it isn't, like it's the case over here, that is just a hole between the clusters, you are going to do one cluster and pass to the next hole. If, like you will see a bit later, if it's a hole created because you have a chain 2, then that is your corner. For each corner, you are going to do a cluster of 3, chain 2, and another cluster of 3. So over here we have a corner because we did a chain 2 on the row below, and you are going to do a cluster of 3, then chain 2, then another cluster of 3. Usually corners are pretty visible because from now on it will look like a square, so you will see when you arrive to the corner, so like the end of your side. You can continue doing more rows following that same principle, but now I'm gonna end mine by doing a chain 2, insert your hook into the chain 2 you did to start your row, and slip stitch. Then you are going to cut your yarn and pass the tail into the loop you have to fasten off. It can help to use a hook for this step, or you can do it with your hand. And you make sure it's pulled tight. So the next thing we are going to do is not a square, it's a rectangle. For starters, we are going to create a slip stitch and make a foundation chain. You are going to chain multiples of 3, and the longer you do your chain, the wider will be your triangle. Here, the longer you do your chain, the wider your rectangle is gonna be. Then you are going to chain 2, and that will count as your first double crochet. Starting from the third loop from your hook, you are going to insert your hook and do 2 more double crochet to have again that cluster of 3 that we have in granny squares. Then you skip 2 loops and you are going to insert your hook into the third loop. You are going to create another cluster of 3 in that stitch. A cluster, for those who don't remember, is really 3 double crochet in the same stitch. you are going to repeat that until the end. So skip 2 and create a cluster of 3 in the third stitch. From here you are left with 3 loops, and you are going to insert your hook into the last stitch and do a cluster of 3. This will become our corners. After the cluster of 3, we are going to chain 2 and do another cluster of 3 in the same stitch. This is our first corner, as you can see, so the spot where we chain 2 will become our new corner. Then we are going to create another corner by chaining 2 and again doing 3 double crochet in the same stitch to create another cluster. So in that last stitch you are going to have a cluster of 3, chain 2, another cluster of 3, chain 2, and another cluster of 3, which will create our 2. To finish this row, you are going to create cluster of 3 on like the other side of your chain, but while inserting your hook in the same stitch that you inserted it for doing your first set of clusters. So you see, you are going to double crochet into the same stitch that you did your 3 other double crochet, but on the other side. Once you arrive at the end, we are going to do our last clusters into the first stitch we started our first cluster. So you do a cluster of 3 double crochet, and now this will be our third and fourth corners and will be similar to what we did on the other side. So you do a cluster of 3, you are going to chain 2, do another cluster of 3, finally, as for the granny square, we are going to double crochet into the chain 2 that we did. So now, like you can see, you have a rectangle. For the next row, you will be starting it by doing a chain 2. This will count as your first double crochet. Then you start by a cluster of 3. So you do 2 more double crochet to complete the cluster. Here I show you your 4 corners. So it's like in the granny square where we did our chain 2, it will correspond to our corners. So the next hole is not a corner because as for the granny square, it is not a chain 2, it's just a regular hole. Once you finish your side, this side, you are gonna reach your corner. So the space where we did a chain 2. You are going to create a cluster of 3, then do a chain 2, then another cluster of 3, like the corners we did for the granny squares. So now we have our corner that is made of a cluster of 3 double crochet, chain 2, another cluster. Next hole is again another corner because we chained 2. So we are going to do a cluster of 3 double crochet separated by 2 chain 2, then another cluster of 3 double crochet. So you have another corner, then you are going to keep going in the other holes that are not corners because there is not a chain 2. So you keep going doing cluster of 3 in each one of them. You once again reach your corner because you have a chain 2, and in this one you will be doing a cluster of 3, chain 2, another cluster of 3. Finally, you reach your last corner where you already have a cluster of 3 made from the beginning, and then just finish off with another cluster of 3. As for the other rows, you will insert your hook into the chain 2 and do a half double crochet to finish off this row. And now you can see the rectangle shape starting to form. For the next rows and the one that will follow, you will always start the same way. So you're gonna chain 2 and insert your hook into the space that is your corner and do a cluster of 3. The next one will not be a chain 2, so you are just going to do a cluster of 3 and go all the way until you reach your next corner, doing one cluster of 3 in each space. Back to your corner, you will insert your hook and do 2 clusters of 3 separated by a chain 2. So last reminder, a corner is the space where you did to chain 2. Now this is different from the row below. So now you have a hole that separates your 2 corners. As you go, this number will increase, so it's gonna become 2, then 3, then 4. So reminder, in this hole you are just gonna do a cluster of 3. Then in your corner you are going to do a cluster of 3, then chain 2, then another cluster of 3. So like I said, when you will come back for your next row, you see you have 2 holes that separate your 2 corners. Keep going and I will meet you at the end, so in our last corner. And then last corner. Half double crochet in here, so really in here. And now, so that's how you do a rectangle. And as you can see, when you're gonna do your fourth row, once you do your corner, you're gonna have 2 clusters before doing your next corner over here. And that's on. And for the little tail, you have at the end, so now it's all weaved in. So you're just gonna have to cut it, and this is it for a rectangle. For the heart granny square, you will need 2 colors. You will first start with the color you want your heart in it. So I choose pink for the heart. And you will do 2 rows of granny square in that color without changing. Then for your third row, you are going to chain 2 and do a cluster of 3 double crochet again in pink. For your next cluster in the hole, you are going to change color to white. To do that, you will do a slip knot with your white color. You will insert your slip knot on your hook and tighten it up. So this will count as your yarn over, so you don't have to yarn over anymore. So you have your 2 loops on your hook, and then you are going to insert your hook into the hole I said. So like I said, you don't have to yarn over. So you insert your hook and then create a double crochet, and then 2 more double crochet in white to finish your cluster. Of course, the pink yarn, you are going to pull a bit on it so the loop is tightened up. For the next cluster, you are going to switch back to pink. So you are going to hold your white yarn with your finger behind the project and create what is now your corner. So you are going to do 1 double crochet, then 2 more to complete your cluster, and chain 2 and create another cluster of 3 double crochet. With your little white yarn, you are going to hold it near your project, so when you crochet, you carry it with you all the way. So like I show it here, the yarn is behind the project and really like on the side and is holding up by my fingers so that I carry it with me. Next cluster will be again a cluster of pink. For this corner, you are going to do a corner white. So you hold again your pink yarn with your fingers and you crochet a white corner. So as you can see, my working yarn will be wrapped around my finger and the other color of yarn will be held on by my the other finger of my left hand. We change again to pink to continue the heart part. So you are going to do your next cluster of 3 in pink. Don't forget, once you change color and do your double crochet in that color, to tighten up by pulling on the yarn of the color that you are not using. Next corner is gonna be again another white corner, so you are going to proceed in doing a cluster of 3 double crochet, chain 2, then another cluster of 3 double crochet. Finally, the last 2 clusters of this row will be pink clusters, so you have a cluster in the next hole and then another cluster to finish the corner that we started in the beginning. I will reassure you, this was the hardest part of it because you had to change colors in specific spots. Now you have finished with the pink yarn, so you can cut the yarn and fasten off like we did when we finished our granny square. Our last row will only be a row where we will crochet in white, so this will really make your heart pop out. Once you finish your row, you can clearly see the heart shape that we just created. You could continue and do other rows of white if you want, but I am going to end here by doing 2 chain 2 and then inserting my hook into the hole, so into the top of our chain 2, and fasten it off. So I'm cutting the yarn and then passing the yarn through the loop that I have and pulling on the tail. For the sunflower granny square, you will be needing 4 colors, so 1 for each row of your flower. You are going to start with your first color and you are going to do a magic circle. Okay, once you have your magic circle, you're gonna chain 2. This counts like a double crochet and you're gonna do 15 more, so to have 16 in total. Once you finish all your double crochet, you are going to pull on the tail of your magic ring to close it. Then you are going to slip stitch into the chain 2 that we did and cut our yarn and pull it through the loop to close our first row. You will be changing colors for your next row. So I'm changing colors and you will need to attach this color to the circle we made. So to do that, you are going to do a slip knot that you will insert on your hook and tighten up. Then you are going to pick any stitch from your circles and insert your hook in it. I don't recommend the last one we made because it's harder. So insert your hook, pull through, and do a slip stitch. After the slip stitch, you are going to chain 2. So for the next stitch, we are going to do a puff stitch, I think it's called. To do this stitch, you are going to do double crochet, but only the first step. So you are not going to finish it. You will leave your 3 loops that are created onto your hook. So here I did 1. In the same stitch, I'm going to do once more. So as you see, I just insert my hook, pull through, but I don't pull through the loops I created on my hook. I'm going to do 3 of those because the first one counted as 1. Once I have all those loops on my hook, I'm gonna yarn over and pull through all the loops. Really take time with that. It could be a bit difficult at first, but you'll get used to it. Then you slip stitch, you chain 1 and you do the same thing into the next stitch. So really be cautious to not skip a stitch in this round because it's not always that easy to see them. So you're gonna yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, again yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, yarn over, insert your hook, all in the same stitch, pull through, yarn over, insert your hook in the same stitch, and then you are going to pull through all the loops. So you do like 4 unfinished double crochet, as I like to call them, and then you're gonna chain 1 and continue this process all the way down the circle. At the end, you are supposed to have 16 of those puffer stitch. Once you finish this row, make sure you have 16 of them, and then you are going to slip stitch into the chain we made over here like this, and then again you are going to cut your yarn and pass the string through the loop and fasten off like this. Third row will be the petals. For this row, I'm gonna use white. So we are going to attach it the same way as we did for the last row. So you are going to do a slip knot, insert it onto your hook, tighten up, and for this row we will be working in the spaces created by the chain 1. So you insert your hook into one of the spaces created by chain 1s and do a slip knot to attach your yarn. Then you chain 2, and now we are gonna learn again a new stitch. This stitch is like again similar to a double crochet because it's a double crochet that you don't finish. So you are going to yarn over, chain 1, you have 3 loops, and then yarn over, pull through 2 of the 3 loops that you have on your hook, so you still have 1 of the loops like you created a new loop. Then you are going to repeat that 3 more times because the chain 2 counts as 1. So you yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, and then pull through loops. Yarn over, insert your hook, and pull through 2 loops. So you are supposed to have 4 loops remaining on your hook. With those 4 loops, you are going to yarn over and pull through all 4 of the loops and then chain 2. So I'm gonna do it once more into the next hole, so into the next chain space created by chain 1. So you're gonna yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, and then pull through 2 loops. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, and pull through 2 loops only. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, and pull through 2 loops only. So this time we are going to do it 4 times, and you are supposed to have 5 loops on your hook, and then yarn over, insert your hook, and pull all through all of them. Then chain 2, so once you finish, you are supposed to have 16 of them. You're gonna chain 2 and slip stitch into the chain you did, so slip stitch into the chain you did, so over here, and then pull the loop, cut the yarn, and fasten off. Now we are on to our last row. So you take your last color, I choose green. So once again, you are going to tie it up. This row we will be working into the chain 2 spaces we created. So put your slip knot onto your hook, tie it up, insert your hook into the space 2, slip knot, and then you will be starting by chaining 3. Here we will be doing a cluster of treble crochet. So for those who don't remember, you need to yarn over twice and then pull through 2 loops, pull through 2 loops, and pull through another 2 loops. You are going to do that one more time. This is your first cluster of 3 double crochet. Then you are going to go into the next space, and you are going to create a cluster of double crochet. So 3 double crochet all into the same space. The next space will be half double crochet. So insert your hook into the next space and do 3 double crochet in the same stitch. Next space we will be doing once more double crochet, and then we will be creating our corner in the next space. So our corners will be always made of cluster of 3 treble crochet separated by a chain 2. Once you finish your corner, you will start on your next side. So as we did before, after the treble crochet, you will go into the next space and do 3 double crochet. Then after the double crochets, you will go into the next space and do half double crochet. So 3 half double crochet to make a cluster of half double crochets. Then after the half double crochet, we start back on with double crochet in the next space. So 3 double crochet. And after the double crochet, we will create another corner by doing 3 treble crochet, then chaining 2, then another cluster of 3 treble crochet. After you finish this corner, the cycle will repeat itself. So in the next space, you will be doing double crochets. So here, double crochets, then half double crochets, then another double crochet, then treble crochet, chain 2, treble crochet, double crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, and we will finish our corner over here. So to finish our corner over here, we did 3 more treble crochet. So here I have 1. I'm gonna do 2 more to finish my corner. And then to finish our square, you are going to chain 2, slip knot into the top of our chain 2, cut the yarn and fasten off. The next square is a daisy square. A daisy square is pretty similar to a sunflower square, just that there is less rows to do. So for this one, you will need 3 colors. As for the other one, you will start with a magic ring. Once you have your magic ring, you are going to chain 1 and create 8 single crochet. Once you did your first single crochet, we are going to mark it to make sure that when we come back, we don't get lost or crochet into the chain 1 we just did. You can really use anything to mark it. I use a bobby pin, but you can use a real stitch marker if you have at home, or even safety pins you can use. Once you have your 8 single crochet, you pull on the little tail to close your magic ring, and you will insert your hook into the stitch we marked, so our first single crochet, and slip stitch. You will then cut the yarn and fasten off. We will then change colors and do the petals. So as we did for the other square, to attach them, you will do a slip knot, insert your hook into one of the stitches and do a single slip knot. For the petals, it's the same petal as for the sunflower. So you start just as a double crochet, but when you pull through, you're gonna just pull through the first 2 loops and leave the 2 others on your hook. So you insert and you pull only through 2 of the loop. So you yarn over, insert your hook, pull through, and pull through only 2 loops. And then once you have 4 of them, so for the first one it will be 3 of them because the first chain 2 counts as a double crochet. So you do it 3 times, and then for the next petal you do it 4 times, and each petal will be again separated by a chain 2. Once you finish, you will be left with 8 petals. Make sure to count them well. Then to finish, you are going to chain 2, insert your hook into the top of the chain 2 that we did in the beginning, and you are going to cut your yarn and fasten off. Then we have our last row, which we will use a different color again. So you are going to tie it up. For this row, we are going to work into the space 2 that we create. The first cluster will be a cluster of 3 double crochet, and you are counting the chain 2. In the next space, you will do another cluster of 3 double crochet. And then we are gonna create our first corner. For the corner, we will be doing 3 double crochet, so a cluster of 3 double crochet, chain 2, and then another 3 double crochet. Then in the next space, you will be doing another cluster of 3 double crochet. In the next stitch, we will be doing our next corner. So we will do a cluster of 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet. This pattern will be repeated until the end, so you will always be doing 3 double crochet, then start your corner by doing 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet, then another cluster of 3 double crochet, and so on. Once you arrive again at the beginning, we will finish the corner that we started by doing a cluster of 3 double crochet, then chaining 2 and slip stitching into the top of our chain 2. Next, cut the yarn and fasten off.